council members, I asked you guys to have your cameras on for the entirety of the time, just because it facilitates interaction, and it's as we're recording this, and it helps other viewers follow things as well. So without further ado, welcome to the Tax Review Commission for 2020-22. My name is Seth Colby. I'm the Tax Research and Planning Officer. And this is traditionally the Tax Research and Planning Officer is the Executive Director to the Tax Review Commission, which means that I am here to support you guys on this journey as you go through a number of recommendations. My office is the small research office within the Department of Taxation. So we'll get to this, but a lot of the research and information that you guys will be looking into, it'll be my office that supports you guys. We have some other, I do want to introduce the Director of Taxation, Isaac Choi, who will be also assisting this. He was a former chairman of the Tax Review Commission, so I'm sure he can offer some important words to us. Do you want to begin with that? And then
Seth, let me stop you now.
Yep.
And I'm going to be chairing this first meeting. So let me call this meeting to order. Welcome. This is the 2020-2022 Tax Review Commission meeting. It's the first meeting. My name is Isaac Choi, and I'll be chairing this meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 8th, 2020 at 12 o'clock. Okay, and of course, due to social distancing protocols related to the COVID-19, the meeting is held virtually, and it is a public meeting, but we'll be doing this virtually. Now, I'm going to think that these meetings will be in person at some point in your commission careers. So at this particular point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Seth, can you do the roll call?
Yes. Murray Clay, are you present?
Here.
Elizabeth Gasting. Yes. Here. Sale Hiroshima. Catherine Lloyd.
Here.
Alton Miyashiro.
Here.
And Scott Teruya.
Present.
Did I get all of those names right? This is the first time meeting, so if any corrections, please inform me. And then just so everybody's clear, there is one vacant seat on the Tax Review Commission still pending.
Okay. And later on, Seth is going to explain to you folks that this is a public meeting, so you should start the way I started by calling the meeting to order, stating the place and time that this particular meeting is being held, and if it's virtually, of course, tell the public that it is a virtual meeting, because Seth's gonna explain the sunshine law and everything, so you will be held to that particular standard. And then, so right now for agenda item, oh, that's another thing. You got to stick to the agenda because the agenda is posted. Seth, this agenda was posted, right?
Correct.
Okay, this agenda was posted. It's usually posted by the LG's office. And so when the public starts coming, they will be looking for this particular agenda. So you got to stick with the agenda. So agenda item number 1 is completed. We're going to move on to agenda 2. And under agenda 2, communications to the commission, I am told that there is no communications to the commission at this particular point. So I'm going to stick my opening remarks under this particular agenda item. So the first thing I want to do is thank you again for volunteering for this very, very important task. I know you're going to have fun. I know you're going to learn a lot. I was the chair of the 2005 Tax Review Commission, and I came in pretty green. I didn't know too much, but the tax department was an integral part of the commission, and I learned a lot. And as I was telling Elton, be careful. You know, you're going to end up being on the Tax Review Commission, and one day you're going to be tax director. So that may or may not be a real good thing. Some of the remarks that I do want to make, and I think it's really, really important, is first, you guys are going to be working on this thing called, excuse me, tax policy. So the first thing I would ask all of you, and if you want to ask Seth about this too, is know the difference between policy and tax law. If you don't know that difference, I can simply say it's just a higher level of thinking, a broader picture. So there are books that's written on this. I know when I was commission chair, I bought everybody a book for $10 on what tax policy is. You can buy it on Amazon. I think it's Brunoli or somebody that always writes books on state tax policy. And it's about a 150-page read, so you can kind of whack it out in one night, but it gives you a great overview of what your job is supposed to be over the next 2 years. The second thing I want to tell you, and this is something that I did during my commission. I know all of your time is very, very valuable. I mean, we're running about $1,000 a second here on your hourly rates here. And I just want to make sure that you don't waste your time. Yeah. You got to find out what the policymakers, the legislature, or anyone else for that matter, okay? You want to find out what questions they want answered, what direction they want, and this is just examples, right? Do they want to throw out the GET? Do they want to put in a VAT? Do they want to put in a sales tax scheme, right? Is the society moving so fast? So more, it's more asset-based taxes instead of transactional taxes. What's progressive? What's regressive? Some of these policies that's going to guide you. Ask, go out and ask. When I was Tax Review Commission chair, the first thing I did was I visited the legislature, right? And in those days, we didn't have COVID, but I think maybe today is a little bit easier. And actually, because of the state of our budget right now, they're going to want your input. They're going to want you to study different things. They're going to want your suggestions. They're going to want your manawa, especially as practitioners that you guys know, and you get a good feeling of what's out there. How the people feel. I know Seth's going to guide you in this particular journey, and I know he has 2 great videos or training sessions. I don't know when he's going to give it to you, but that's something that you all should take, and he'll guide you to what this policy. So don't waste your time. Go directly to the policymakers. Ask what questions they want answered. Okay. Number 3, make your report readable. Seth, close your ears. Okay. When you leave your tax review commission report to economists like Seth, they're going to write an academic journal. And when an academic journal is written, nobody's going to read it. It's just going to gain dust, right? I spent a lot of time personally writing the 2005 report. I can remember, writing 10, 15, 20 pages of text, and all of it getting, rejected by Dr. Rusling. And he would tell me, no, you can't say this, no, you can't say that. But I wanted to make sure that the report that you folks come out with is readable. That to me is really, and remember, when I say readable, I really mean, well, I guess I can criticize politicians because I was one, but it's the politicians that's going to read these reports. Make sure you use language that they can fully understand if you get my drift. And the time you spend here, it's going to be amazingly quick. I still remember in the beginning, we had, we did a lot of organizational things, and we talked a lot, and we threw a lot of ideas out. But as the deadline approaches, it was really crunch time. It was really, really crunch time. I still remember when the deadline was approaching, and I began to panic. I told the commission members, the next meeting, bring your pillows, because unless we finish this up, nobody's gonna go home, and And there's Seth will explain to you how you can get around the sunshine law by having PIGs, permitted interaction groups, and subcommittees, and all this kind of stuff that you're going to have to work within. But this is a 2-year period. I think it's a 2-year. The 2-year period it's going to go really quick. And at the end, you are going to be standing in front of the legislature giving your report. Okay, and that's always a fun process because then they get to grill you and ask you all these questions and things like that. And I really had a great time because I had a great commission, and every hard question that was asked of me, I could just pass on to another commission member, and they were subject matter experts in that particular area. So, you know, I just want to tell you that I had fun. I learned a lot, and I wish the same for you. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth to go on to agenda item number 3, overview of the Sunshine Law. Okay, Seth?
Great. So once again, thanks for being part of this agenda. So before, I thought we could just introduce all of ourselves, if that's okay with each person, so we get an idea about what your background, what you're interested in terms of tax research, and any other things that you would like to share with the committee, because each one of you guys are going to be working with one another for the next.
Seth,
Yeah.
something is wrong. They can't hear you. You're really soft.
Sorry, that was my fault. Do you hear me better now?
Yeah, much.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, maybe we could just go quickly around the Zoom room and share a little about ourselves, our backgrounds, and what we're interested in, what we'd like to contribute to this commission. So maybe we could just go down the list that's on the PowerPoint presentation right now.
Okay, so I'm Murray Clay. I'm the president of Ulupono Initiative. I'm kind of a finance, private equity type of guy. I don't have necessarily deep experience of any kind in taxes per se, other than being a payer of taxes like we all are, hopefully. But certainly fluent in quantitative analysis and numbers and things like that. For those that are curious, Ulupono Initiative is an impact investing firm that invests in renewable energy, clean transportation, and local food production, just trying to help Hawaii be more self-sufficient. And we do investments, we do grants to the Hawaii Community Foundation, and really just try to help Hawaii be a better place. And so obviously I'm not representing Ulupono in this, but just trying to be a concerned citizen, hopefully get to some good outcomes. So that's me in a nutshell.
My name is Beth Giesting. I am the director of the Hawaii Budget and Policy Center, which is a program of Hawaii Appleseed. Our mission in life is to try to move public policy toward positions that will support greater equity and opportunity, particularly for lower income families. Before I worked there, almost all of my career was in health policy. I worked in Governor Abercrombie and Governor Ige's offices on health policy. I was the director of the Hawaii Primary Care Association and was executive director of Kalihi Palama Health Center. So my only direct experience with taxes is way back when I was once a paralegal doing estates and trusts work in Indiana. So I really know not much about taxes, but I am really, really interested in learning because I understand how important they are.
We can't hear you, Sal, if you're talking. No, we still can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay.
Now it's
Okay,
good.
sorry.
Oh,
My
yeah.
mic must have been off. Sorry, Sale Hiroshima, my current position is Vice President Controller Hawaiian Airlines. I have a, I don't know, 25-year career in accounting finance. My degrees in accounting and finance. I was a I'm a non-practicing CPA. Previous work experience has been at all levels of size of a company, from small business to Hawaiian, which is one of the largest private employers in the state. I've also worked in the union environment for stevedores, Hawaii, and also for First Hawaiian Bank. So my policy questions or concerns are from an employer standpoint, basically, and just kind of representing that view.
Wonderful.
Hi all, I'm Kate Lloyd. I'm currently General Counsel with the Hawaii Community Foundation. I'm a tax lawyer by training. I've been in private practice, worked with a bank, and been with the foundation about 15 years. My area of specialty in tax is, I guess you could call it, tax policy to incentivize social and philanthropic activity. I'm sort of really interested in adequacy of our current tax system, as well as the progressivity of it. I guess those are my two areas of passion, but I'm looking forward to learning a lot more.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alton Miyashiro. I am a practicing CPA. I've been working in public accounting for over 40 years. That's all I know how to do. Never trained in anything else. I do primarily consulting work now. Some of it dabbles in tax, but it's primarily business consulting. And I'm hoping to help this commission come up with some good policy recommendations for the legislature to adopt. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Teruya. I'm the current finance director under the Victorino administration. I am the former real property tax administrator, been there for 23 years. My background comes actually not really to the state, but more from a county level, being property tax. I am designated member of the International Association of Assessing Officers. So I know tax policy, but only from a property tax standpoint, not from any income tax. That's my general background. I know it's a little bit different from what the state is. However, I have a very good grasp of about regressive versus progressive taxation, and that would be my expertise. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you all for your service ahead of time and your time and your intellectual capacity that you're going to be contributing to the state. We do really appreciate it. This is an important commission. People do read this report. Just as a side, as a little anecdote. So right now, most of you guys know that there's large budget shortfalls for the state of Hawaii. My office is one of the my office does do a lot of the revenue estimates for different legislative proposals as it relates to revenue enhancement structures. Just a couple days that came across my desk, at least, were a bunch of proposals just straight up pulled out of the Tax Review Commission, right? So sometimes these ideas do not gain immediate traction. However, when there is a need, this is one of the references. Your report will be one of the references for years to come about what the state should do when it's running out of revenue or when it wants to make something more equitable. This is an important reference. So we really thank you ahead of time for your service. So just to give you a quick update, again, my name is Seth Colby. I'm the tax research and planning officer. We have within my office, I have the luxury and the privilege and the honor to work with a number of really smart people. There's a bunch of PhDs and researchers within my office who are wonderful colleagues, and a lot of their technical expertise and time will be devoted to this commission as you guys have questions, and we will be the primary ones executing the research. one just note, so Roderick Tuliao, or he goes by Rick, you've received a couple emails by him. He will be providing a lot of the administrative support for this panel or for this commission. So please, if you do have administrative questions and stuff, please reach out to him and he should be able to handle those things. Okay, so in previous, I know Director Choi went over this really quick. This should see, I'm sorry, it should read a communication to the commission. In the past, we've had letters and actual specific agenda and topic items to cover for the commission. As of right now, we have not received any. So that may change in the upcoming legislature, but just be aware of that right now we don't have anything mandated. So one of the this is a public commission and public committee. And one of the big things that's quite unusual when you serve on one of these is these are have to adhere by the bylaws of the Sunshine Law, right? And the Sunshine Law is a state law that mandates and tries to promote transparency at the committee level to ensure that the public has access and understands what's going on and decisions are being made in a transparent area. There's lots of particular rules about those, and I will be guiding you guys, and I will be also consulting the AG's office, who's really in charge of this, as we go through and if we have specific questions. However, I didn't want to overwhelm all of you guys with this, but there's a number of things that you guys have to think about. One is board members are not allowed to discuss board business with each other outside of an official meeting, including by telephone, email, or social media. This means that you guys can email each other about when should the meeting be. You can talk to each other about what your kids are doing, everything. It just should not be discussing official business, right? The agenda is incredibly important. It needs to be posted 6 calendar days prior to the meeting, and it cannot diverge very easily. There's some little, if you have a 2/3 majority vote, you can rearrange the agenda items slightly as long as it doesn't appear in the meeting. However, you can't discuss something that's materially important to the public that hasn't been discussed in the agenda. As Director Choi mentioned, you guys, there is potential ways for subcommittees to go out and to research different items and areas of interest, right? In which case, two committee members can talk and discuss things one at a time or with each other. However, they cannot discuss how they're going to vote on a matter, right? And then it is important that the subcommittee go do the research and bring back that research and those findings back to the committee at large and present it in a meeting, right? So the idea is we're just trying to promote transparency here, right? All the minutes and the deliberations within the commission are going to be recorded when we're doing Zoom calls, and even then we'll have some minutes which notes who was present, the voting records, things like that. And if we eventually do move back to in-person meetings, we will have minutes that all of you guys will review and approve in subsequent meetings. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Director Choi, you're muted.
Okay, Seth, are you going to go over executive meetings and permitted interaction groups?
I was going to like go things as we went along. I was going to discuss the ins and outs with that. However, I could discuss that now, or you can discuss that now if you
do it. You can do it at your leisure, but I just wanted to tell the other commission members that during my 2 or 3 years as Tax Review Commission chair, I only had two executive meetings, everything else was public, because that was one of my particular pet peeves about people going into executive meetings and not being public. So I erred on the side. In fact, I was scolded by the AG all the time that, you know, certain things should have been kept private, but I was more open and transparent and said, no, we're going to talk about it in public. So I would request that you guys follow my lead and be as public, open, and transparent as possible. And again, during my 2 years, I think I only had 2 executive meetings, and they were like 5 minutes each. So, you know, maybe that's just giving you some guidance in that particular area. Also, we did have Seth, we did have a little comment. Are you going to provide the other commission members with their contact information, right?
Yeah, you guys we can share that with one another as well.
Okay, that's all.
So, and just to follow on to Director Choi's comments, an executive committee is a committee that does not have to publicize everything. Normally, the executive committee is designed to allow discussion within the commission for where matters are deemed private, of private matter. So when you're dealing with a personnel decision, reviewing resumes, going over things that are cannot be publicly available information, then you can decide to have a executive committee. And that's when you usually do that. The other one is the subcommittees, which I talked about. So if one of you, once you guys do elect a chairperson, and as a commission, you decide that you want specific subcommittees, you can have subcommittees. And as long as those are noted and created and follow the rules, that then you can go and discuss official business. However, the only restriction is you can't discuss how you're going to vote with one another. And again, there's millions and millions. I find here's some resources for the Sunshine Law. I really encourage you guys to read over the first one, the Guide to Sunshine Law for State and County Boards. It's about 60 pages, so it's not like quick reading. However, if you looked at the first 20 pages, I think you should get a gist of what you can and cannot do. Again, I will be here, and the AG will be here to consult you guys and to provide guidance to make sure you guys adhere. And if you guys have any questions, please come to me or the AG and we'll answer it as quickly as possible. However, I do really encourage both of you guys or all of you guys to read over both of these little links. The tips for virtual meetings is just what we're doing now, right? So there had to be some exemptions from the Sunshine Law to allow for virtual meetings on a mass scale. And this is the direction. All of this is the Sunshine Law, I should have mentioned earlier, is managed and overseen by the Office of Informational Practices, right? Does anybody have any questions about the Sunshine Law? Great. And again, if you do have, usually the questions come up as we go, because as you guys get into the weeds and start acting, that's when the issues come up, and I will always be here and the AG will be here as a resource to support you. So I wanted to go over the official duties of the commission. So this is what's in the HRS, the Hawaii statute. The commission shall conduct a systemic review of the state's tax structure using standards as equity and efficiency 30 days prior to the convening of the second regular session of the legislature after the members of the commission have been appointed. The commission shall submit to the legislature an evaluation of the state's tax structure and recommend revenue and tax policy. So that's a mouthful. What does that mean for you guys in principle? It means you guys should acquaint yourself with the entirety of the state's tax structure. You should apply standards of equity and efficiency, and we will get into that. And the report is due in January 2022, 20 days before the second legislature. Usually the legislature starts at the end of January, beginning of February. And so that would put you guys directly in the January 2022 for the date of your report. So please keep that in mind as you guys think about how you want to coordinate your actions.
Seth, quick. Oh.
Yep.
Just a quick comment on that. So essentially, since we're getting a late start due to COVID, we really only have a year, it sounds like,
Yes.
which is definitely a compressed time schedule. It might affect how much we're able to get done, but I'm certainly willing to dig in with everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes, but Clay, remember, you can meet daily if you need to. All you got to do is notice the meeting. And the other thing about Seth's remarks, Seth does a beautiful job on putting reports up on our website. So for you to get familiar with our tax structure, and the annual report is a great place to start. Seth does it. He does a good job. It'll give you a great background on our state tax structure.
Right. So what's the next thing? Okay. Yeah. So this is a great segue. So what are the resources available to you as you embark on this tax odyssey? Normally, the state legislature has or traditionally, I would say, historically, the legislature had apportioned financial resources to this commission. And for this commission, there has been none, right? So in the past, they had put out an RFP to look at different different tax issues, and there's been a number of consulting services that have bid on that. Unfortunately, you do not have that. So what does that mean? That means that most of the requests are going to come directly to the Tax Research and Planning Office, and we are more than happy to work with you and help you guys as well. However, we just need to be cognizant that we do have other responsibilities as well. However, this is one of our important responsibilities. Director Choi?
Yeah, so I did put in $250,000 for this year, $250,000 next year as a request to the governor for the Tax Review Commission. So there's your big chance to be a lobbyist. I don't know if it's going to go to a cutting room floor or not. When I was chair, Alton, Brian Taniguchi was the WAM chair. So it was easy. I did get a $500,000 for the commission. So, like I said, talk to the legislatures, tell them you want money. $250,000 each year is a reasonable amount for this tax review commission. In good times, you would have easily gotten that. So like I said, talk to the legislature. And now that my request is in, you can also talk to the governor if he so chooses to put in the executive budget.
So one of the things, again, we are here to provide a lot of support, right? The Tax Research and Planning Office. And we have the capability, and normally even when we do hire the consultants, a lot of the work comes back to us because we're the ones with all the data, right? However, one of the things I would like to offer you guys is I would like to offer you guys a number of introductory presentations that are just really designed to give you the lay of the land of how Hawaii's tax system works, things that people have talked about, just different levels of analyses to get you guys provide a good foundation. And even before, it's up to the discretion of the commission, so I will defer to the commission to its totality. However, sometimes I find it better almost to get this learning done, and then you can ask more intelligent questions than try to ask the questions before you know anything about the system. So that is something to be considered. And once you guys decide on the chair and the vice chair, and you guys can decide on what you want to do in the next meetings, I just want to put that out there. And again, I have lots of different presentations, and I can put together new presentations. We're here to serve at the pleasure of the commission. The other thing I would really encourage you guys to do is look at past TRC reports. All of them are at this website. You will see the dynamics of the different ones. Usually they include one of the consultancies, the annexes include the consulting's report as well as a number of different reports put out by the Department of Taxation at the request of the commission. This commission is mandated by the Constitution. And so it has been going on for a while, since the 1980s, right? And we have commission reports going all the way back. One thing that you will find, and what I really encourage you guys to do over the next, I would say next several months, is start reading over the TRC reports, because our tax system has not changed fundamentally in the last 20 or 30 years, or 40 years, really. We have a lot of GET, so a lot of individual income tax, and then we mess with the other things. We mess with exemptions and things like that. However, there's a lot of good work going back far. And so one of the things that you do not need to do, or it's up to you, if you want to update certain findings, you can. However, I'm sure you don't want to replicate work. You want to create things, new things of value. And so I would really encourage you guys to go back there. There's all the reports are online. You can actually see all the, more than just the reports, you can go back and see all the documents that were furnished to the commissions and see how each commission acted, right? And what they were required, how often they met. And that should give you guys a good guide about how you guys want to conduct yourselves as a commission. In addition to that, my office has tons and tons of resources that's put online about different annual reports, different things. And I will proffer that and put that into a very consumable way for the consumable means for the commission, right? If you guys want to, if you have any questions, we do have lots of interest. And so this is just my, this is my experience working at the state, is everybody wants another, everybody loves like a study group or a commission, right? Because you put it off and you want to make a decision. You're like, oh, we need to study this issue. There's been tons and tons of studies done at the state level, right? And so by asking me, I may be able to point you out into a commission or a study that's already been done that may be still relevant for today. And so I really want to encourage you guys to like think about things about what's already been done, and that will really help you understand the value that you can create about what you guys do going forward. Does anybody have any questions so far about this? Great. So this is my proposed, I've worked with the past Tax Review Commission. I've been here at the tax department for about 4 years now. And before that I was in Washington, DC, doing a number of different policy jobs. My proposal, like if I were you guys, and this is nothing but a suggestion because you guys defer, I would go conduct a review of the tax system. That would include my presentations, help you. We can identify resources that the committee wants to look at to review. You guys can do your background research, and then you can identify areas of interest and relevant questions. After that, you can commission the research. By that time, we will know if this commission has received additional funds to do that. In addition, you can ask us to do so as well. Once the research people conduct the research, you guys can review the commissioned research, you make the recommendations, and then you compose the report. That would be general, my proposed workflow. I don't know if you guys have any questions or if Director Choi has some insight, as he's been the chair of this commission as well.
No, I think you said it all, Seth.
Okay. So right there, the next item on the agenda is looking at the conclusions and the findings of the 2015-2017 report. And then we're gonna go into the election of the chair and the vice chair. So please interject if you guys have any questions about any of this. So there was the 2015-2017 commission had divided up they had findings and they had recommendations. And so the first things I want to present to you guys are the findings, right? And these are the major ones that they all decided upon and voted upon. The one is there's a huge revenue shortfall in terms of unfunded liabilities. This is prior to our current economic crisis. It was clear that this, in order to make the state retirement system, and that includes the pension fund, and more importantly, which you'll see is actually the state health or the insurance. It's a medical healthcare benefits system, right? And so that's basically, that's even more unfunded than the pension fund system. And that is a big issue. And the state was, in order to make itself whole, was going to have to put more and more money into it. Given the recent executive orders and the dire situation the state has been in, they've elected not to fund those, right? So there will be even more unfunded as things go on. And so that is one of the things that they recommended, is that, or findings, is that the state is just going to have to devote more of its own resources and tax revenue to the unfunded liabilities, which there's two ways of doing that. You can either reduce expenditures to devote to that, or you can increase revenues. And unfortunately, one of the limiting things that or frustrations that past commissions have expressed is the mandate of this commission is only to look at revenues. It does not look at expenditures, right? Which, as you know, as anybody, all of you guys have run businesses, expenditures and revenues are incredibly important. And so that's one of the perennial frustrations of people on these committees, is if you're really looking at revenue adequacy, you need to look at the expenditure side of things as well. Another finding it had is the income tax rates are progressive. Yes, Director Choi.
Okay, so let me at least comment on the first findings. Make sure that you folks know the difference between our retirement plan and, of course, our OPEB or healthcare. We have reports for both, annual reports for both, actual reports for both. I think the healthcare is every other year, but you know our retirement plans are pre-funded, and it is within GASB limits as far as funding is concerned. Our healthcare is pay-go until the last couple of years when under Chair Luke, they started trying to fund the post-retirement benefits for health. So be sure you know the difference between the two when you look at the two. A lot of times when I listen to people, they seem to put the retirement fund and the health care fund all in one conversation or one sentence, and that's not true. So the health care is a pay-go scheme, and the retirement pension plan is a pre-funded scheme. Okay.
Thank you, Director Choi. So the second finding, like I said, was income tax rates are progressive. I will go over that in very close detail, as if you guys elect to do so in some of my presentations. Oh, the other thing that they did find right here is that while it is progressive, we do have a bunch of weird rates. So we have, compared to other states, our income tax kicks in relatively early, and then our rates are low, and then there's a little bit of a plane in the middle income around, $25,000 to $50,000, and then it increases or stops at 8.25%, and then just recently in 2017 we reinstated higher rates on the upper income classes, upper income brackets. So that has made it even more progressive. One thing that we'll see in the recommendations is our income tax brackets are, unlike the feds, are not adjusted to inflation, right? And so every year more and more people enter into higher and higher tax brackets. And so that is oftentimes one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, but more and more people are taxed every single year, even though in real terms, and what I mean by real terms is like the spending power of different people's incomes, their income may not increase, but their tax rates have, right? So we do not adjust rates. And so if you look, a lot of these rates were established in like the 1980s. And so you can understand why a lot of the rates don't seem to fit our idea of like what middle class is or other things, because they're a little bit lower or older, I should say. Another key finding is do not eliminate the corporate income tax. There was a study from the 2015-2017 about what would it be like to eliminate the corporate income tax in the state of Hawaii. The corporate income tax is a very small part of our revenue collections. It's usually around $160 million a year out of $7.2 billion. So it's not very high. The collections are actually higher, but about half of the corporate income tax liability is given away in tax credits, or changed by tax credits. So there was questions about eliminating that. However, the findings found that it was a great way of tax exporting. Tax exporting is, the definition is traditionally if you can get people to pay taxes that are not residents of your home state, not residents of Hawaii, that's called tax exporting, right? So when tourists pay our GET, we consider that tax exporting. Corporate income tax tends to be a lot of tax exporting because most of the shareholders of major corporations do not reside within Hawaii. And that is the source of those things. And so they did a study, you guys, Don Rusling commissioned that, or did that study at the request of the 2015-2017 commission, and generally found that it would, even if we removed it was very beneficial to the state to keep the corporate income tax rate. And you guys can check out that study on our website in the commission report. The personal exemption and standard deduction should be adjusted. So this is what I've been talking about, like a lot of our rates. So the personal exemption and standard deduction is, if you guys aren't familiar with those, it's basically, probably the federal is more famous about this. So with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, they raised it to about $12,000, right? So the first $12,000 of income is not even applicable to taxation, right? And so in the case of Hawaii, it's very low. It's like, I think it's $2,200, right? And so the personal exemption, standard deduction, we'll go into that, but they're basically two sides of a similar coin, I would say. And anyway, people really have to start paying taxes very low on the income scale in Hawaii. And one of the commission's findings was they are very low, and maybe they should be increased a little bit. So going back to the recommendations, we're on the recommendations and not the findings side now. They made recommendations by category. So this is related to the net income tax. One is they think they should increase the personal exemption standard deduction rates. The recommendation was to increase it to levels of the federal income taxes as of year 2017. And that was right before the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that dramatically increased personal exemptions or standard deductions. Yes, for at the federal level. And their recommendation was to alter the tax rates to have similar levels of collections, just by alleviating tax burdens at the lower levels. They also came up with the idea that retirement income should be taxed. Currently under our system, Social Security and payments from defined pension schemes are not taxed. So if you get money from your 401k, that is taxed. If you get a defined pension, which is essentially, military, state government, federal government, that is not taxed income, right? And so that is about $4 billion of income that is not taxed on a yearly level. And so they suggest taxing that. Some of you guys will remember that past governors have looked into doing that, and they've had a really difficult political challenges when they brought that up. So that's just something to think about. Director Choi, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to help you out on the retirement, taxing of retirement income. I think every tax review commission has recommended that. It was held during my political career because taxing of pensions always came up and they always asked my opinion, but I was on record. When you're part of the commission, I was on record to say that I did recommend taxing retirement plans, and all the old futs really just came after me real hard. But again, I was on record and I signed the report, so I didn't want to go back on that particular policy. The other thing was, Seth, when you have time, make sure you tell the commission about the multi-state tax commission and how that integrates with corporate income taxes and why we keep the corporate income taxes alive and well.
Yep. I'll go over that when I give it my presentation on corporate income taxes, but thank you very much. So, you know, in order to deal with a lot of the political realities of taxing retirement income, the commission actually recommended that they enact it with a 5-year lag, which would give people time to adjust to the realities that their income would begin being taxed at the state level, right? And then finally, allow corporations to expense new investments was one of their ideas. Currently, we don't have accelerated expensing at the state level like they do at the federal level. And so that was one of their recommendations. So in terms of recommendations related to tax adequacy, they recommended taxing remote sales of, so this is basically e-commerce sales. This has largely been resolved with the Supreme Court overruled a very famous court case in tax policy called the Wayfarer versus North Dakota, and which basically said in the 1980s that states could not tax transactions if the seller did not have economic nexus, which basically means they had a retail store here in Hawaii. That has been overturned, and the state of Hawaii has adopted new legislation to allow us to tax internet transactions. So Amazon, eBay, all of that is now, as long as they have sales of over $100,000 or more, are legally obligated to pay the taxes. So that's been resolved. They also recommended the taxation of e-cigarettes. That has not passed the legislature, even though there's been a number of different proposals in the legislature. And because everybody loves commissions, study commissions, they also recommended creating a Simpson Bowles Commission, which is basically this really famous, I don't know if you guys remember it, but early in the Obama years, there was this Simpson Bowles, which were these two old senators that looked at ways of looking at both revenue and expenditure ways of increasing the fiscal solvency of the federal budget, and looking at Social Security, Medicare, all those different things. The recommendation of the last commission was to do something similar. Again, I mentioned it prior, but one of the difficulties that commission members have seen when they're tasked with this idea of tax adequacy is you only get to look at half of the equation, right? And that's the tax revenues. You do not get to look at tax expenditures, which is a very serious and needs to be looked at just as much. And so the recommendation here was to establish another type of commission that would do both and offer specific recommendations.
Okay, Seth?
Yes.
Okay, on the e-commerce, can you go back to the screen before that? Okay, on the taxing of remote sales, you guys all know the Commerce Clause required a physical presence. Wayfarer actually introduced a new concept called economic nexus, and And as Seth said, most of those particular issues are pretty much handled. We're probably the most avant-garde legislature in passing laws that tax remote sales. So like you heard in the paper, 70% of our Christmas shopping is going to be done online. Hopefully, because of if everybody follows the law, will not be losing that much revenue or no revenue at all, but we'll always losing some on remote sales. One of the interesting facts that I want to point out on economic nexus and physical nexus, we're doing an initiative here against a big online search engine, which has a lot of zeros in their names. It's very, very interesting because what we're trying to say is that this particular search engine actually leaves something in Hawaii. So they do have physical nexus here. The thing that they leave in Hawaii that gives them presence in Hawaii are cookies. So if you really think about it, those little cookies that's left on your computers, we're going to be considering that as physical presence, and they owe us taxes on advertising revenue. So that particular subject is still very, very interesting, still being litigated and still being pursued by our tax department here in Hawaii. Okay, Seth?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Director. And then last but not least, they asked for a couple more studies in their recommendations. One was on a carbon tax. This carbon tax study is actually going to be coming out. It was of the state's energy office. It should be coming out in like 2 or 3 days about carbon taxation. So, or maybe I'm going to review it, and our office is going to review it in 2 or 3 days. It'll probably be public within 2 or 3 weeks. I'm sorry. But by the time you have, I would say, your third meeting, there will be a publicly available report on carbon taxation that you guys will be able to look at. Harpta was another thing of, they wanted to look into what would be the impact of raising the rate from 5 to 9%. Harpta, in case you don't know, is kind of like it's inside baseball. It's basically if you are a non-resident and you sell a property here in Hawaii, the state has high withholding a high withholding rate, so that you have to prove that you've paid all your back taxes if you're going to get your money rate. Before it was 5% and then it was 9%. There was legislation that has passed, so the Harpta rate has gone up subsequently from the 5% rate to, I'm not sure if it's at the 9% rate, but it's pretty close. And then they wanted another study on the effects of education on compliance rates that they brought up. This, and the director can talk more about this, but the department does engage in a lot of different compliance education rates, and that's one of the foundational pillars of compliance within this department and with all revenue departments. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, Seth, if I could just interject, guys, the carbon tax is merely the barrel tax. That's something that the freshman class in 2009 introduced the barrel. Remember the $1.05 per barrel to fund the energy office? They're thinking of raising it to 3, 4, 5. But that's how carbon is going to be taxed, a barrel tax. Although our barrel tax only does liquid fuel right now, and it doesn't capture coal and everything. But if you're wondering how carbon is going to be taxed, it's merely the barrel tax. As far as Harpta is concerned, yeah, the withholding is very important, but I think the overall policy scheme is whether now you're going to start taxing assets instead of transactions. That's something for you folks to think about, that there could be a policy shift between what tax base you're going to be using. Okay, Seth.
Yeah, and so just to go quickly back to the carbon tax, my understanding of the carbon tax is they would also include other fuels, carbon-based fuels, which include coal and other things like that. So they would incorporate other things. But I think what Director Choi was pointing out is a really important thing to think about when you're thinking about taxation and taxation policy. one of the reasons it's easier for the state of Hawaii to do a carbon tax is because we have the barrel tax, right? So one of the fundamental ideas is work with what you have. Don't create something new. There's a totally different way of thinking about the carbon tax where you actually looked at not just the fuel aspect of it, but you could actually, there's a number of different ways to structure the carbon tax, right? One way you could look at is like, think about every single different material final good and think about the carbon required to produce that final material and tax that accordingly, right? That would be a monumental lift for the Department of Taxation, probably well over the scope of the capacity of this department to determine all of those different things. But that is a different way and probably a more true way of taxing carbon, right? So I just highlight that is that when you are making new proposals, it's much easier to add on to a tax, an existing tax, than create an entirely new tax from a tax administration point of view, right? Because there are two different aspects of when we think about tax policy. One is like, is it a good idea in theory? And the second one is it easy to administer? And by using taxes that already exist, they're much easier to administer. So without further ado, that was a quick overview of the 2015-2017 findings and recommendations. I encourage all of you guys to go back and look at those reports and spend some time with those. Even prior years, I would go all the way back to the mid-90s actually, and look at all those different reports, look at the different annexes, how the reports were composed, the main features of the reports, the different questions that they've been asking, and different things like that. So unless there's other questions, the next item on the agenda is the election. Yes, Scott.
Hi, thank you. Quick question. And my understanding is that was the report of the 2015-2017. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there is no 2017 to 2019 recommendation by another?
Oh, great question. Sorry, I didn't mention. The commission meets every 5 years, right? So, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that. Thank you very much, Scott, for clarifying that. But the mandate is this commission meets every 5 years, but the constitutional mandate. So, and you're supposed to go about 2 years they give about 2 years for each commission.
The other comment said, I just wanted, there was a discussion on expenditures instead of revenues. I think I forgot what title it was set, chapter 200, the budget chapter in the HRS.
Mm-hmm.
It does spell out limitations on expenditures on state debt that we can incur. Those are the things that make sure you put it somewhere in your presentation so they know the principles of state budgeting and expenditures. It's not like the wild west where we can just spend any kind of money. In fact, we have one of the most powerful governors because of the allotment and restriction process, right? So we control expenditures in this particular state by statute. So Seth, in one of your lectures, make sure the commission members know how expenditures in state governments are controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Seth, I'm gonna, yes, Clay. You gotta unmute, yeah.
Will we get copies of like these slides and so forth that are shared in these presentations?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm going to put just because this is a public board and to everybody watching, we post this on the internet as well on the webpage.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, let me give you, can I make one comment about the public? My commission meetings were standing room only. So the lucky chair is going to make sure that he can control all the people that's going to come. You'll be amazed. There's some really great people out there that's really interested in tax and tax policies, and they should be coming out of the woodwork. And like I said, our meetings, I was the chair during the old Act 221 days. So everybody was there, not necessarily cheering me on, but it made the meetings pretty interesting. Okay, Seth, should we move on?
Yep.
Okay, we're on agenda item number 6, and I don't want everybody to just jump up at one time here, okay? I know how enthusiastic you guys are going to be for this next one. So I'd like to open the floor for nominations to the office of chair for the 2020-2022 Tax Review Commission. I'd like to entertain any motions, entertain any volunteers.
I would like to ask one of you to outline the expected responsibilities of both of those positions.
Sure. First of all, the chair conducts the meetings. So that's very, very important under the sunshine laws. Like I said, when I was chair, the public was there. So I made sure that not only the commission members had a voice, okay, but I also had made sure that the public had a voice, that they had an opportunity to speak and, say what they had to say. My particular commission was pretty contentious because of Act 221. And so when I wrote my Tax and Review Commission report, which is another duty that the chair might want to take on, is to write their own. I like to write, so I wrote my own. They got rejected about 25 times, and I rewrote it again. And I guess Roosevelt English just doesn't pan out in the real world. So, but I did try over and over and over again. One of my techniques I used that to quell the public members from when they came and showed up is I ensured that their particular opinions was reflected in the report. So as we discussed the old Tax Review Commission recommendations, it doesn't mean that you guys have to agree to that. Okay, you guys are an independent voice. You're a fresh set of eyes, right? And so your manao is what's really, really important. Okay. Of course, you're going to have to organize the commissions to make sure that you meet the deadlines. And Seth will guide you through these deadlines, and make sure that you're on task and on time. I don't know how often you met, but I think from memory, we met once a month in the beginning, but as we got toward that deadline, and I started panicking, like there was no progress, there was no agreement with what tax policies that we would recommend. I started to panic, and I swear, I think I was doing meetings every 2 weeks or something. And then of course I told you about the threat at the end, right? Unless you guys agree, right? Unless you guys agree, bring your pillows, because we're not, the meeting can be all day, all night if you want, bring your pillows, because until you guys get it all done, we're not leaving. And actually that threat really kind of moved things along. Then before the legislature starts, you should, be prepared to present your work. And that was kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed that. We did it in the auditorium at the legislature. Oh, and the chair, you guys know how committees work. The chair does most of the work. So when I told you in the beginning to go out and ask the questions, make the connections to policymakers, right? No, that's not true. I think everybody participated, but I think I took it upon myself to go and meet the money committee chairs and anybody that I felt was interested in tax and tax policy. I also met with, I also had subcommittee meetings for different lobbying groups. Like I noticed Ulupono's here, and I forgot the rest, but I made separate meetings for them to make sure that their voices were heard. So basically, the chairing this commission is like chairing any other particular committee that you folks volunteered, and you're really kind of driving the car, driving the ship, in a direction. I don't think, Elton knows me well. I don't think I made any genius policy decisions or anything like that. It was more administrative and making sure everything was moving along. Did I answer your question? Okay, so.
And then Dr. Choi, or Director Choi, if I could just add on, my experience is when there is a director who really provides some intellectual leadership, it's a lot easier for the whole entire commission. because governing by committee is notoriously hard, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so just as a reality is, yeah, leadership does take on more, or the chairman or the vice chair usually takes on more work. However, they do provide very important, in my experience, very important leadership in terms of this is what we should be looking at, this is what we should not be looking at, in consulting with the whole entire committee, right? Whereas, because then you cannot look at the whole entire tax system.
That's
There's
correct.
just not enough time.
Or
And
money.
there's not enough. So you need to pick and choose your battles, and figuring out the theme and what you want to do, and consulting with outside the leadership of the state, whether it's the governor or the legislatures, and understanding what they want you to look at. And so it'll have salience once you commission a report is important. And the last commission had a strong leader at the beginning, but for health reasons had to back out a little bit. And then, to be perfectly honest, they floundered and just waited to the last minute, and they didn't have a lot of direction. And I think just the amount of work that they did was tremendous, but it wasn't received as much because it didn't have somebody at the helm kind of pushing it forward and also championing it once it was outside. That's my experience.
And like I said, once you get into this thing is pretty interesting. I mean, I learned, well, Elton knows, I learned a whole lot. I learned a whole lot being the chair of this particular commission. And I had excellent commission members. They all had very diverse opinions on how things should go. So it was kind of fun for me. Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's try one more time. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the office of chair of the 2020-2022 Tax Review Commission. Okay, let's not all jump at once now. Come on, hey guys, if the Senate doesn't kick me out, I'll be here to help you, so it's okay. Okay, and I don't know if you know Craig Hirai, he was past chair. He's the head of BNF right now. I think we all took pride in our report. I know this is going to sound strange, but I do go back and read my report every once in a while to say, hey, I wrote this stuff. So, I think it's cool, guys. Okay, so let's have a volunteer. Oh, that's really good. Seth, what do we do when nobody volunteers?
We sit in silence.
I can do that, Did you get? Yes.
I will volunteer.
Oh, okay, very good.
Thank you very much, Beth.
So we have a nomination for the chair. We have Beth. Are there any other nominations? Okay.
This may not count as a nomination, so if I'm out of order, feel free to drop the gavel on me. But from the self-introductions, I remember a couple of people actually have tax experience, which I personally don't have. I kind of think it would be nice to have someone with some tax experience in that position. So I would support whoever that might be. But I realize it's kind of somewhat, it's logical, but also uncool of me to say that because that's not me. So I'm not volunteering myself. I'm kind of inadvertently volunteering someone else. So again, if I'm out of order, drop the gavel on me.
No, I think your voice is very, everybody's voice is very, very important. Okay, so I'm gonna, without objection, I'm gonna close the nominations for the office of chair. And all in favor of Beth being the chair of the 2020-2022 Tax Review Commission, signify by raising your hand.
Can we actually have let's go around.
Oh, we better
Isaac, why don't you, since you're the current chair, why don't you go around, say exactly what you're asking, and then have each member say aye, nay, or yes or no.
The motion is to elect Beth Geisting to be the chair of the 2020-2022 Tax Review Commission. I'll take a roll call vote. Alton,
Yes.
Clay,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Kate.
Aye, and thank you, Beth.
Did I miss anybody?
Yep, me, I.
Oh, okay, very good.
Just for clarity, there's no need of a second. You just vote, just making sure.
Oh,
So what you should really do is somebody puts a motion on the floor and then somebody seconds, another member seconds the motion.
A second for the record.
okay, very good. Thank you. So we have a unanimous vote for Beth. Congratulations. Let's all clap. Okay, Beth, you have agenda item number 6, second half.
And I do not have my agenda open. Is that the election of a vice chair?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So who would like to do that? And I would recommend that people look to Clay's comment about having somebody who knows a thing or two about taxes.
I see somebody smiling.
Okay, it looks like we're gonna do the silence routine. So somebody better step up right away. Chair, you can prod them along, you know.
I mean, one of the things that you guys can think about that will may help clarify things is, as a committee, you guys need to all define your own roles, right? So if you guys want to take this opportunity right now to define just the workload of the different positions, whether that's the chair or the vice chair or all the committee members, that by crystallizing things that may help people better understand what they are willing to volunteer for.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things, Beth, if I could guide you just a little bit, I did make subcommittees with different topics. So, you know, the members all had a role in different parts of the report. And that's some organizational things that, just a suggestion that you may want to do in the future.
Yes, so there may very well be additional responsibility for people who don't step forward to volunteer today. And Isaac, can you note whether the vice chair has any specific responsibilities in your term other than standing in place of the chair when necessary?
Well, I was very fortunate to have Ron Heller as my vice chair, and he and I have fought for 30 years, so we agreed with nothing. But you know, he's a great guy. He's a very competent guy, and I was very, very fortunate to have him. No, I don't think there was any specific duties, but he did take a portion of the report, one of the topics, and you know, he did a very good job on it.
Well, I would appreciate whoever the vice chair decides to come forward, that they would ensure that we are educating ourselves on all of the important aspects of taxes from a whole lot of different points of view. And that's one of the reasons I think that it would be particularly useful to have the vice chair come with a significant background in taxes.
Okay, Elton. That was an invitation.
I guess there's a lot of finger pointing here, so I will volunteer to be vice chair.
I'll second that.
Very good. And assuming that that is a motion to stand in that position, can we have a second?
I would second that.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And again, I guess because we're on video, we should do it individually. Kate?
Aye.
Clay?
It's Murray, but I
Oh, I'm
changed the name. It was backwards. For some reason, the thing had it backwards, but yes.
Murray Clay, yeah, thank you. Scott
Aye.
and Kaio,
Aye.
thank you. All right, great. It will be wonderful to work with you, Alden.
Okay, since you don't have
Same
your
here.
agenda, item number 7 is the next meeting date.
And you guys may also want to discuss what you want to do in the next meeting as well.
I think that it would be extremely helpful for you to go over some of the important issues about the tax system that we all need to have as our foundation to have intelligent conversations and ask the right questions.
Yeah, so last time I had 3, I gave a presentation on just things to consider, like adequacy, efficacy, like progressivity, like just basically putting down, like giving the common terminology. I did one on the GET. I did one on the individual income tax and corporate income tax. And then I did one on the TAT and actually property tax and how like our tax system all fits in with one another. And then I have another one on who pays Hawaii's taxes. So like,
That's a good one.
yeah, which actually looks at, who pays, whether it's corporations, whether it's lower income people, higher income people. And actually there's a lot of, one thing that I think a lot of people don't quite get is they only think of progressivity as coming from the individual income tax rate, but we have a tax system, right? So we have the GET, and when you look at all those together, you get a little bit more of a different picture of things. So if you just want to just begin by like the next 4 meetings, I can give those 4 presentations. That would probably get you to like February. And
since you're out of time, couldn't they just set a date for the next meeting and the agenda can come separately, and you can actually, because this is all Zoom now, right? It's not gonna be live. You can just schedule your classes and they can take their classes anytime and not waste a meeting date for it.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's good. I can pre-record these lectures and just have all of you guys watch them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Scott.
Thank you. I have a question for Seth. I know you mentioned all these different videos that you can do. Do you have anything, or any previous commission have any report on the conveyance tax?
No, the Department of Taxation officially does not administer the conveyance tax. That's DNLR from the Bureau of Conveyances. So we don't have a lot of information on that, and I do not have any information on that. Most of the information that comes from the conveyances actually comes from, we infer it from the title companies they all publish all that information. And you know more than I do, Scott, about all this, but that's where we get all of our information.
Yeah, we that's our primary document as county tax officials, and there seems to be a lot of comments or inconsistencies that I see, potentially people skirting them paying their fair share. So that's why I have a concern on that. Thank you.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just trying to pursue this question myself this week. And in fact, I called somebody at DLNR, the Bureau of Conveyances, and they said they do not collect any of that information.
Oh.
So I don't know where the information is going and who's collecting the taxes, whether that's at the title companies. But at least the person I spoke to said they just record the deeds. They don't have anything to do with taxes.
Yeah, that's correct. Like, as far as my understanding, there's nobody within the public sector that is monitoring and ensuring that there's compliance of that tax.
That sounds like it might be worth taking a closer look at then.
Yeah. And the conveyance tax is also a favorite of the legislature to like, yeah, to like raid or cherry pick or do different things. Because like a lot of people, the number one, what you'll learn is the number one rule of taxation is when you're a politician is get somebody else other than your constituents to pay for the taxes.
Right. I can attest to that.
So I'll just make a quick comment. So Seth, just speaking for myself, I'm also very interested in those training classes or whatever you want to call them, those presentations that you're talking about. And I guess I'm of two minds. I often like to argue against myself. On one hand, if you do those presentations as meetings, we can ask questions and stuff like that, be a little bit more interactive. On the other hand, I do understand Director Choi's point that we don't have a lot of time, so we probably wouldn't want to stretch those into February if we did them in person. So it feels like the trade-off is either pre-recorded and then you can't answer questions, but you can do them quickly, or if we make them actual meetings, we probably have to have them more closely together to get through it so we can still have time to do our work. That's just a suggestion for.
That's a good point. I'm wondering whether it might be possible to schedule a half day, a couple of half days next month. How many can we do in a sitting to try to get a good understanding?
Beth,
because I do think that it would be more effective to do it in person.
Right. Beth, if I may, Dr. Colby's said, you correct me, but his presentations are 45-minute increments, right? It's not like a half day type of thing. It's
we could just meet twice and I could give 2 presentations each time, something like that.
It's short, right?
Yeah. And I mean, think about where you're going to be in February, right? So you will be starting, let's say, even if you had to wait till February, you're still not going to know if you have any money. Like I think one of the big issues, and Director Choi, you can jump in here, and you're not going to know you're going to have money until June, which is like to commission a report and pay people and do RFQs is like, you don't have any time. It's very difficult to get money out, get a report done and get back to you by October, right? I mean, that's like quick turnaround time. And I don't know if that's even, so Dr. Choi or Director Choi can answer that, but like, even if you get done in February, you gotta be thinking about like, what are you guys going to be, you can ask us to do that, but even my office is usually very busy in legislative season because we're doing all of the revenue estimates. So we don't really have the organizational capacity to, irrespective of if you guys get money, to like start looking into this until May.
Yeah, so what Seth's saying is if you have a major, look at the old Tax Review Commission reports.
Yeah.
You have a major topic or major policy that you want studied by an outside economist. First thing I'm going to tell you, there's not a lot of outside economists that's willing to do this kind of stuff. Okay. I had a hard time finding vendors. I'm so happy to have Marsha Sakai from University of Hawaii at Hilo to do my report. So that was really good. But so you're going to have that particular problem. The minor reports, I think, you're going to have major topics and then a lot of subtopics. A lot of subtopics, Seth and his crew has probably already studied, but he can update his studies. So he can pretty much get a handle on that. We do have some economists here that's going to help you out. Yeah, as far as funding is concerned, like I said, you're going to have to start doing your lobbying now.
And just to let you know, the last consultancy group that did it it's called the PFM group, and they did it for cheaper for the 2015, 2006, 17 commission because they had already done it for the 2010, 2012. So they just kind of updated a lot of things. So I think they did it for a lot cheaper than I mean, a true consulting company charges a lot of money to write a report, right? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So especially if they're beginning. So last time we used the same group and they were already familiar with everything, which saved time and money on them. Again, this is just something to think about. I would go back and read all the reports because one thing I say is most of the questions that you guys are probably in your heads have been asked before. And so you may not even need to do like a huge, or asking for specific reports is probably, I would say, a greater value to the state than overarching reports, because the overarching reports have been done several times. That's
Murray?
just my thing. Yeah.
So Chair, I would say, why don't you go ahead and set the next date for the meeting?
Okay, before we get to that, I want to hear from Murray.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I guess this is probably mostly for Seth or Director Choi. From having been certainly not a lobbyist by profession, but a lobbyist by necessity on some occasions, properly registered, of course. My sense of studies is two things. One is, as one of you said, it's used to kick the can down the street a few years and appear to be doing something about a problem, but not really doing something about a problem. And then when the studies come out, they're often set on a shelf and they become a very expensive binder that no one does anything with. So given the potential lack of resources or lack of certainty on resources and the lack of time, is it in bounds to take a study, and in fact, maybe even including, just as an example, this carbon study you said that's going to be coming out, carbon tax day, it's going to be coming out soon. Take a study and actually read it and say, based on this study, you should do X, Y, and Z, and actually put together a specific recommendation based on a study that's actually already been done or will soon be done. Is that in bounds, or is that not, is that not original enough?
That is totally in bounds. And not only is it totally in bounds, even if you commission a study and they come up with a conclusion and you disagree with that particular conclusion, depending on your chair, right, you can put a dissenting opinion in the report. I think in my report I had a dissenting. It's the chair. The chair is going to guide you on whether dissenting opinions are going to be allowed or not. But these reports we talk about, at the end of the day, it's the commission's manual that we're looking for. So you can commission a $1 million report and then you read it and you say, hey, you know something, I don't agree with those guys at all, right? And up to the chair, you can do something like that.
Okay, so shall we? Yes, Kate.
So, and this sort of is on Murray's question too. Is it appropriate, given our compressed time schedule and given the fact that we're projecting, that we're not going to have an economic recovery in Hawaii until the end of 2021 at the soonest. And I know a lot of economic projections are already being done about the tax revenues because of the pandemic and the result of employment and all of that. Would it make sense, is it within bounds to sort of say, we're looking at the last 2 or 3 commission's recommendations and seeing, are those recommendations heightened because of the pandemic and our economy now? Have they become less important, more important? In particular, I'm thinking about progressivity and some of the issues there, or is that sort of like I don't want to just turn old reports, but we're in a very unique time right now, and it's not kind of business as usual.
Okay, so let me answer that. If you look at the last pages of my Tax Review Commission report, we took all of the recommendations from the prior commissions and made a chart. We presented a chart in the report to see whether it was implemented, not implemented. And you can bring up the old findings, but we put a good scorecard up there.
Okay.
And maybe even Seth can update that particular chart.
I can provide that to you in the next meeting.
Okay.
So I think that it probably would behoove us to take a look at the old reports and decide which ones we are most interested in bringing up to date and exploring further. See if we can identify any new ideas that may be pertinent now that had not been discussed in great detail in past commissions. And then I will try to find some time to talk to some legislators to see what ideas they may have. And I don't know, Isaac, do you also spend your time doing that? Because I think that would be really helpful too, to guide our work.
Yes, Chair. I know it sounds strange, but I do enjoy tax policy and I do look at it all the time. I can recommend all the books I've read on tax policy. And I think you'll find it pretty fascinating too.
Okay, great. Shall we turn our attention to when we can meet again? I understand that you had some trouble, Seth, getting a time when all of us could meet.
I'm glad it's your
that will
job now.
continue to be the case. So the sooner we can have kind of a standing meeting date and time, the better. Are we able to meet in about a month? Nobody is doing anything in December, right? Because we can't go anywhere for the holidays.
Beth, if I can suggest what we did was we just said like a third Wednesday or something, fourth Thursday or something like that.
Right. So since today is Wednesday, let's start with Wednesday, December 16th at noon. Is there anybody who cannot join us then? That was easy.
I appear to be available.
Okay. And let us make sure that we have at least 2 hours for this because we're going to start our education that day. Seth, is that good?
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
I have a hard stop at exactly 2 hours, so I can go from 12 to 2, but then at 2 I do have to drop off. I've got a board meeting, but I can definitely do the 2 hours.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And just a reminder, you guys need at least 4 people to have quorum and to have a official meeting, right? And that's just something to think about because the original, there's officially 7 people on this committee or commission.
As far as actually drafting the agenda for the day, because I know we have to have a written one and it has to be filed in advance with the Lieutenant Governor's office. Would you like to take the first crack at that, Seth, and share it with me by email?
Yes. So generally the normal format is we do most of the administrative work for you. We send it to you and the vice chair for approval and comments. And once you get that, then we'll go ahead and take care of everything else.
Oh, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any more business that we have to take care of today?
You just need to officially adjourn the meeting.
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm looking forward to working with you, and the meeting today is adjourned.
Fantastic. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for your service.